So as somebody who talks about Naruto a lot, I get asked the question, would you rank the Konoha 12, I guess 13, a lot? Or questions along the lines of who's the weakest, who's the strongest about the Konoha 13? So I want to rank them so everybody knows where I stand and where you probably should stand, because I'm very well informed. The only problem is there's two ways you could rank the Konoha 13, by usefulness or by combat ability. Because while Ino may be the bottom of the barrel in terms of combat ability, she's probably top 3, top 4 in usefulness. So as it pertains to this video, I'm gonna go with combat ability. And maybe somewhere down the line, we'll talk about how useful each of the Konoha 13 members is. But for the moment, we're talking about their abilities to punch each other in the face. And we have to start somewhere, and I've already alluded to where that somewhere is. Unfortunately, it's Ino. Ino is a support type through and through. Somebody who needs to be protected, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're not useful. She just doesn't have much in the way of offensive capability. Ino kind of functions like Kakashi's Ninken. She catches people so they stand still so the people around her can defeat said person. But before we get into her actual ninjutsu ability, that being mind transfer technique, let's talk about kind of her fundamental abilities. She actually has very impressive chakra control. And because of this chakra control, she studies to be a medical ninja. And she's really good at it. She's not as good as Sakura or Tsunade, but she's completely fine. And while none of us may ever forget the Ino versus Sakura Chunin fight, her taijutsu has improved dramatically since then. I mean, she was able to box with a reincarnated Asuma, whose entire fighting style was basically predicated on his fists. By the time the war arc rolls around, she actually has earth, water, yin, and yang releases. And in the anime, she has fire release. On top of this, she has an ability originally created by Hagoromo. Ino is one of the only people we've ever seen use chakra transfer technique. Essentially, Ino can pass her chakra to other people who are depleted of chakra, but none of these things are Ino's true strength. Ino is noted to be the best sensor type ninja in the history of the Yamanaka. She can focus on somebody's chakra from a great distance away and see if there's any changes to it. These changes include being under genjutsu if they're molding chakra for an attack, and then she can use that information and pass it along to her teammates, and not just by telling them, like mentally send them the image. Because her skills are so impressive, she's become the head of the Konoha sensor team. Essentially, she's erected an entire barrier around Konoha, and everybody in Konoha has a registered chakra signature with her. If anybody, and I mean anybody, who is not registered goes through the barrier, she knows. On top of this, she can probe people's minds for information, just like Nagato's human path. This is why Ino is also the head of the interrogation corps. But none of this is Ino's offensive capability. That is just her mind transfer jutsu, which she can use to project her consciousness into the body of another. Ino improves this technique, which sounds pretty lackluster, by allowing her clones to be able to do it as well, which means Ino can create clones and then have all of them project their consciousness into other people. At this point, that she can have all those people just stab each other. This is powerful if you can catch the person and they're not moving, which is what Shikamaru is good for. But she can also use mind-body transmission technique, which allows her to telepathically communicate with people or connect everyone together to telepathically communicate to all of them. Once again, not an offensive capability. But the next person on our list does have offensive capabilities, and that next person is Tenten. Tenten is regarded as one of the best users of space-time ninjutsu out there. And I made that sound way cooler than it is, because it's just her ability to summon weapons from other places. But those weapons is where she makes her bread, because Tenten has an ability which is actually not really seen in any other person in Naruto to adapt to any weapon she gets her hands on. This allows her to use a wide variety of weapons like the Manriki Gusari or a bow staff, but it also allows her to use weapons she has no prior knowledge of. Because of this, she was able to wield some of the Sage of Six Paths weapons, like the Jidanda or the Bashunen. Then you take into effect that she is the Leaf's top marksman. She can hit a target 100 times out of 100, but unfortunately, she doesn't have a lot of chakra. Usually, if you can wield the Sage of Six Paths weapons, you would be insanely powerful, because the Sage of Six Paths weapons are insanely powerful, but they use a ton of chakra, which is why we only ever saw the Sage of Six Paths and the Gold and Silver brothers use them. So while she can wield them, not for long. So yeah, if a kunai is gonna defeat you, then Tenten is your worst enemy. And that's all I have on Tenten. Let's move on to our next installment of disappointing Konoha 13 members, Kiba. Kiba is a little bit slept on, but not that much. Kiba, as a member of the Inuzuka clan, has very heightened senses. Essentially, the Inuzuka clan has co-evolved with their dogs in order to take on more dog-like traits. But this doesn't only pertain to scent, it also pertains to just general sense. Like Kiba was the only person who was aware that there was an Anbu member stationed in the Chunin exams arena. This was because of his heightened senses. But since we're talking about how the Inuzuka co-evolved with dogs, let's talk about these dogs. These dogs are ninja hounds, dogs specifically bred from wolves in order to collaborate with the Inuzuka and accomplish police work, war efforts, search parties. So if Kiba's already insane smelling abilities weren't enough, he also has a ninja hound who has an even better nose than he does. Kiba fights alongside Akamaru, and they use shadow clone and transformation techniques. Outside of shadow clone and transformation techniques, Kiba is also capable of earth and yang release. Essentially all of Kiba's abilities revolve around making Akamaru a clone of himself, but he doesn't make this clone until he uses his four legs technique, which is essentially a transformation that Kiba goes under to give himself claws and fangs. Once Akamaru is a clone of Kiba, they use the ability Fang Passing Fang, or Fang Over Fang. But let's say Fang Over Fang isn't working. Is there another option? Yes, there is. Akamaru and Kiba can join together to make a two-headed wolf, and then they attack using Fang Wolf Fang, which is like Fang Over Fang, except there's only one of them. But here's the thing, even though they're spinning at an incredibly high velocity, does not mean they can't see where they're going. In fact, it's been stated that Fang Wolf Fang is almost impossible to dodge and even harder to block. But it doesn't end there. If Kiba adds a shadow clone to him and Akamaru, he can make a three-headed wolf, and then they can use tail chasing Fang, rotating Fang. I don't know why every single thing has fang in it. You have claws as well. And actually, fun fact, it doesn't end there either. In Konoha Hiden, a light novel about Konoha after the war arc, a meteor breaks off of the moon. In fact, many meteor break off the moon, and conveniently they start hurtling towards Konoha. And Kiba's actually able to use an unnamed jutsu that's stronger than his strongest fang ability to destroy one of these meteorites, which is a feat that's similar to what Sasuke did in Naruto the Last, which is a very impressive feat. Outside of using Akamaru, Kiba's actually got a couple other techniques. Well, I guess I wouldn't call them techniques. They're more like strategies. Kiba frequently feeds both him and Akamaru military pills, which are essentially condensed food pills that increase both Akamaru and his chakra output. And on top of that, he's also known for using smoke bombs in order to create a diversion because it doesn't affect his nose because it's so powerful. So when he throws a smoke bomb, he can still find you because he can still smell you. And even though Kiba isn't incredibly strong, he's actually still very useful in Konoha. He's heavily involved with the police in Boruto, where he uses Akamaru and his nose to sniff out criminals or find missing people. And this has actually kind of made him a celebrity. He advertises for dog food brands. So the next couple are kind of a hodgepodge, but I'm obviously going to explain why I choose who I choose. There's 4 people coming up here that are very powerful in separate ways. Those people are Neji, Hinata, Sai, and Shino. You could make an argument for any 4 of these people at any 4 of these locations, but I'm going to be ranking them based off who would walk out of a fight alive if these people fought. And conventional knowledge would tell you that Shino is probably the weakest of these 4, but his abilities are easily the most promising in terms of straight up murdering somebody else. So I have to ironically put the person who is an actual trained assassin in 4th place, with Sai. I'm not saying Sai isn't incredibly powerful. He is very powerful, but the rest of this list is stronger. Sai is a root-trained Anbu member. He is incredibly powerful. He was chosen and trained by Danzo. He's killed thousands of people. He's also stated to be the strongest root member of his generation. As a member of the root, he had to get incredibly trained in Kenjutsu, aka sword fighting. And Danzo believed he trained him so well that he sent Sai alone to kill Sasuke. Didn't work, but he sent him. God, I wish it did work though. So I can use earth, fire, water, and yang release. And here's something you probably didn't know. You know that ability that Shisui had that everyone was like, oh my God, he's got the body flicker technique. He's so powerful. Sai can do that as well. In fact, Sai can add his ink to the body flicker technique in order to more effectively cover up who's the after image and who's the real image. Since we're talking about Sai's ink, let's talk about his painting ability. Super Beast Scroll is Sai's ability to essentially paint an animal or a human or anything really and bring it to life. This is an earth and yang release combo. Sai can draw tigers to attack his enemy, draw a bird to fly on. And this is an incredibly versatile ability. I mean, think about it. Birds for transportation, tigers for attack, snakes to restrain enemies, mice for reconnaissance. He has the power of the entire animal kingdom on his side. He can also turn words into small animals, so they fly to their target and splash onto a page and read a message that is completely concealed to people who Sai doesn't want seeing. And if this doesn't work, Sai can recreate the benevolent kings who are so powerful they were able to destroy Deidara's birds. And because he was trained by Danzo, he had to be trained in Fuin Jutsu, also known as sealing jutsu. So when Sai draws a particularly large tiger, he can use his ability Tiger Vision Staring Bullet in order to bite people, claw in, and pull them into his scroll. It's actually one of the most powerful sealing jutsus in the entirety of Naruto. But where Sai slips up is his ability to instant kill. Yes, his tigers and his birds are very powerful, but they explode on impact. If you get a good hit on one of his tigers, it just explodes into ink. That doesn't mean it can't rip your throat out if it doesn't get its claws around you, but it's easy to defuse. Don't get me wrong, his taijutsu and his kenjutsu more than make up for this. He's one of the most proficient users of those two things in the entire show, but he doesn't have the hacks other people on this list have. Like our next entry on the list, Shino. Like I said before, Shino is most likely weaker than Sai by a not small margin, but there is few people in Naruto who can kill as proficiently as Shino. 1, we've never seen him lose a fight. 2, he could have access to more bugs if he wanted to, but he chooses not to because he doesn't like what they represent. 3, if he had joined the route like Danzo wanted him to, he would have been the strongest ever member, much stronger than Sai. I mean, think about the fact that he beat Torun Aburame, by the way, a reincarnated Torun Aburame, in a fight in the war arc. Torun Aburame was Danzo's right-hand man, the personal favorite of the worst man in the entire show of Naruto because he was so proficient in his assassination ability. Torun could use the Rinkaichu, which is a microscopic bug that is only given to select members of the Aburame clan. When the certain Aburame clan members decide to use this bug, the microscopic bugs flood to their skin, making their skin purple. But here's the thing, there's a reason only select Aburame clan members are allowed to use these bugs. It's because if, while this mode is activated, that Aburame clan member touches anybody with any part of their skin, wherever they touched on another human begins to melt. Shino was actually chosen to receive these bugs, but didn't want to take them because he didn't like how violent they were. And Shino beat Torun, who was using these bugs. So let's talk about the bugs that he can use. Shino has a bug called the Bikochu, which has a better nose than all ninja dogs. This bug can track a scent from across a country. He has his bugs, the Kikaichu, which he uses to extend into fists or make walls or jam up Kankuro's puppets. These bugs reproduce in 20 minutes, so he can use them in mass volumes and never worry about them running out. But he also has the Kidaichu, which is a bug that lives inside of him that he has to feed a certain amount of chakra. And if he doesn't feed that bug the right amount of chakra, it will grow and grow and grow until it explodes out of him at the size of a boulder. If he puts that bug inside of you, you have no idea how much chakra to feed that bug, and it will grow and destroy you. This is what he did to one of the Ten-Tails wood clones. It's also massively implied in Boruto that Shino has access to the Kochu. The Kochu is the bug that killed Shisui. This bug is smaller than a mosquito, but packs the same amount of poison as a viper. One bites you, it paralyzes you, and then it slowly poisons you until you die a painful death. Oh, and the worst part is after you die, the poison disappears from your body. No wonder Danzo wanted the Aburame. And if you thought Sai's ability to make mice for reconnaissance was impressive, what about the fact that Shino can make a bug do it? That is much harder to see than a black and white mouse. We saw in Boruto that Shino was essentially able to go one-on-one against Mitsuki in Snake Sage mode. And it's heavily implied that Shino could have easily killed Mitsuki, but he didn't choose to use his most poisonous and lethal bugs. But you put Shino in a fight to his death against Sai, and I think Shino walks out of that. But I couldn't in good conscience put Shino above the next two on this list, the first of which being Hinata. Yeah, Hinata is stronger than both Sai and Shino. I know, feels weird, right? Here's how strong Hinata is. She's been a housewife for about 10 years, which means she has been out of active combat for 10 years. Hanabi, her little sister, an active Detective Jonin, who's trying to be the next Hyuga clan head, surprise attacked her after she's been out of combat for 10 years, and Hinata won. In the anime, Hinata is seen to train her abilities to such a degree that she actually learns an ability to make needles out of water to shoot at enemies. These are essentially created senbon through her jutsu. And by the time the war comes around, her chakra control is so impressive, it's actually considered to be medical ninja level. Oh, and also Hamura decided she was the princess of the Byakugan and gave her what was left of his chakra. Yeah, remember how Naruto has Sage of Six Paths chakra? Hinata has the opposite. She has Hamura's chakra. Wait, if Hinata has Hamura's chakra and Naruto has Hagoromo's chakra, wouldn't it stand to reason that just like when you combined Indra and Ashura's chakra, you get Hagoromo's chakra, when you combined Hamura and Hagoromo's chakra, you would get Kaguya? And Hinata has had 2 of Naruto's children, so she almost definitely has combined cells with him. If you don't understand that, I'm not explaining it. Would it be her or Boruto or Himawari? I don't know. Regardless, the reason that Hamura chose her as the princess of the Byakugan is because she's one of the most talented users of it ever. Just like with any Byakugan user, Hinata can see in 360 degrees, but she has a special ability. If she focuses her vision in one spot, she can see 20 kilometers away. In the anime, Hinata can see infrared. Yeah, she can just scan for heat signatures, and just like any other user of the Byakugan, she can use Gentle Fist. And while initially in Naruto she wasn't very good at it, by the war arc she has completely mastered it, so much to a degree that she made a new Gentle Fist ability that had never been created before. In fact, she is the second youngest person ever to make a jutsu, the first youngest being Kakashi. Hinata created Gentle Step dual lion fists, which acts much just like a regular fist in a gentle step user's kind of technique, but when the user hits a target with their fist, it drains the target of chakra. In Naruto the Last, we actually see her power up this ability with Hamura's chakra. Let's say you're not within her reach, she has mastered the ability called Vacuum Palm, which allows her to shoot concentrated gusts of air to deflect projectiles or push people back like Almighty Push. But unfortunately for her, she is not the most powerful user of the Byakugan on this list. No, that spot is reserved for our favorite pencil holder, Neji. Now, I'm mostly scaling off potential here because you could very much make the argument that peak Hinata is close to, if not stronger, than Neji. But our boy chose to be a pincushion before he reached his true peak potential, so I'm gonna have to give it to him. And I mean, who are we kidding? Neji was a genius. As a member of the side family, Neji's actually technically not allowed to learn any of the clan's advanced techniques. Things like rotation, 128 palms. He wasn't allowed to learn those, so he just watched main branch users use these abilities. And based off observation alone, he was able to teach himself all of these techniques. To put that into perspective, rotation requires that you release chakra from all 361 of your Tenketsu spots simultaneously, and then spin at 750 miles an hour. He just saw somebody do that and picked it up. In fact, Hayashi, Hinata's father, thought Neji would surpass all other Hyugas ever. And Neji's promise didn't stop after Naruto just because he stopped showing up. During the time skip, Neji was the only person of the Konoha 13 that was promoted to Jonin. And on top of the Byakugan and Gentle Fist, he could also use fire, earth, and water releases. I mean, Neji, at age 13, killed a member of the Sound Village 4 by sending chakra down a line. Neji was able to control chakra so incredibly well that he was able to send such disruptive chakra down this spider webbing to his opponent that it killed them. It killed them by shutting down all 361 of their Tenketsu points simultaneously. Also, at this young age, he could use 8 trigrams, 128 palms, which has him moving so fast that the things around him appear to have stopped in time. Well, let's say 128 palms isn't enough to stop all the incoming projectiles. That's where rotation came in. 8 trigrams palm revolving heaven is considered the perfect technique. It was created to protect Hyugas from their blind spot above their second vertebrae. But here's the thing, if Neji couldn't get to rotate in order to use rotation, he could use his Tenketsu's points other ways. Neji could shoot chakra from individual Tenketsu points in order to free himself from any situation. Apply this to other world circumstances, like let's say you throw a kunai and it's coming right here. Neji could shoot chakra from this point in order to deflect that kunai. Let's say he doesn't want to do that. Just like Hinata, he could also use vacuum palm. So yes, by the war arc, Neji and Hinata were similarly powered, but Neji had done more over the course of his career. And if he had gone on to live as long as Hinata has gone on to live, he probably wouldn't be a house father, so he would be much stronger than Hinata is. That being said, him and Tenten would have had some pretty powerful kids. And I know what you're saying. You probably believe that the Hyuga members should be higher up on the list because the Hyugas are called the strongest clan in the Leaf, right? That's honestly just because of numbers. Hyugas are taijutsu masters, and that's about it, unfortunately. There is plenty of people in the Naruto verse who could just keep the Hyugas at a distance and defeat them. If they can't get to your 10 Ketsu points, that's pretty much GG's. That's enough with the pencil holder. Let's talk about somebody who isn't dead. Choji. Choji is very powerful. Actually, Naruto and Boruto says that Choji is the physically strongest person in the Leaf. Choji, when he was younger, had to use the tri-colored pills in order to awaken to the butterfly mode, but he can now do it on command. And for a super in-depth explanation about the tri-colored pills and butterfly mode, I covered the Akamichis in depth right here, but I'll give you a brief synopsis. Tri-colored pills are essentially like the 8 gates. You eat them, you get stronger, but if you eat too many, you die. But butterfly mode is what happens when an Akamichi member burns so much of their fat, they make super concentrated chakra in their body. This chakra is so concentrated, it actually seeps out from their spine, but when it hits their shoulder blades, it shoots out into a butterfly-like formation. Choji is able to use this mode to handily beat Jirobo in the Sasuke retrieval arc, and the hits just kind of keep rolling for Choji after that. In fact, in the war arc, he defeats Hisashi Hyuga, Neji's father, and reincarnated Kakuzo. You know, the guy that needed Kakashi and Naruto to kill the first time? The guy who fought Hashirama and lived? Yeah, him, but also give him infinite chakra and the ability to regenerate at any given moment. Obviously, most of Choji's strength comes from his partial and or full body expansion jutsu. He can use this jutsu to make himself big or any shape, really. Like when he uses human tank bullet jutsu, which makes him a big ball that he can wrap his own hair around because the jutsu also applies to his hair and make that hair spikes, much like Jiraiya. This makes him a big old ball of kill. But his true strength lies in his ability to just become massive, because Choji is said to be able to get the size of a mountain at the speed of lightning. This is kind of like the Colossal Titan, except the Colossal Titan is only 80 meters tall. Choji is well above that. I don't know how far well above because it just says the size of a mountain, but mountains are many sizes. So let's assume 4,000 feet. But Choji can stack this massive state on top of butterfly mode, where he can then use the chakra in these wings to focus on his punches and deliver devastating blows. In fact, he's so effective at this that him and his father fight the Ghetto statue, which is the husk of the Ten Tails. I mean, they lose, but anybody else prior to this list would have lost much faster. On top of this Yang release partial expansion jutsu, he can also use earth and fire releases. Be careful who you judge based on looks. But Choji wouldn't stand much of a chance against the next person on our list, Rock Lee. And I know I said earlier that the Hyugas were not that high on the list because all they could use was taijutsu, but what Rock Lee does isn't taijutsu. I mean, let's remember Rock Lee in Naruto for a second. He almost beat Gaara in a fight, and Gaara destroyed half of Konoha. He beat Sasuke in a fight, who was a natural born prodigy, and he basically beat Kimimaru in a fight, who was Orochimaru's perfect vessel and the last member of the Kaguya clan. I mean, Rock Lee is so fast in Naruto that when he was fighting Sasuke, Sasuke could predict his moves with the Sharingan, but his body wasn't fast enough to move away from the moves. Rock Lee was faster than Gaara's perfect sand defense. And heaven forbid you get some sake in him and he starts using drunken fist, his moves become so unpredictable, he's basically impossible to fight. All of this power is achieved through incredible training and also the 8 gates. At 12 years old, Rock Lee could open 5 of the 8 gates. By the time he turned 17, he could open 6. And by the time the war arc rolled around, he could open the 7th, which means he can open the 8th, he just hasn't done it yet. I mean, in the 6th gate, Rock Lee is so fast, he was able to save Kakashi from a Truth Seeker orb, which are so fast Obito couldn't use Kamui to get away from them. This is Obito, the guy who used Kamui on Minato to avoid his attacks. And Minato was known as the Yellow Flash. I mean, by the time that Naruto the Last came around, Rock Lee was able to kick a meteor in half. There's really no reason to assume that he is any weaker than Might Guy, who was able to almost kill Madara. But let's talk about somebody who could actually kill Madara right now, Sakura. Yes, Boruto Sakura would kill Jubidara. I have done an entire video about how strong Sakura is that you can find right here, but I'll talk in generalities for the moment. Sakura's chakra control is so precise. She can apply chakra to her hand in order to catch ninjutsu and throw it back. This is very similar to the Rinnegan's ability to pull in jutsu and shoot it back, except she doesn't need a dojutsu, she's just that talented. But let's say she doesn't have time to catch it and you're about to land a fatal strike on her. She can send chakra to where you're about to strike in order to nullify your attack. Her chakra control is so impressive, she can feed chakra into a building and map out the entire thing. She can find traps, people, hidden rooms. Her 100 healing seals, her Byakuya seal, actually stores more chakra than Tsunade's. And while Tsunade was able to use it to heal from death 100 times over, Sakura doesn't use any of the chakra in her Byakuya seal in order to make herself look young, so she could heal more than 100 times. She has killed a Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. She went toe-to-toe with Shin Uchiha, who had a Mangekyo Sharingan and like 17 other regular ones. Oh, and by the way, Shin Uchiha had so much chakra, he didn't have to turn off any of these Sharingans. Shin Uchiha is absolutely a pre-reincarnated Madara level threat, and Sakura was able to run the ones with him. Oh, let's not forget the fact that she is entirely resistant to Genjutsu. Her chakra control is so insane, she can disrupt her chakra at any given hint of her being under Genjutsu. Oh, and she can also summon Lady Katsuyo, the strongest of the legendary Sannin summons. A summon so large that Tsunade and Sakura, when they both had their Byakuya seals activated, could only summon 70% of. A summon so powerful, it was able to heal most of Konoha simultaneously. But that's enough about Sakura, right? Let's talk about her husband. The reason that I'm calling it the Konoha 13 because Sai and Sasuke are both on the list. I'm scaling to pre-nerf for everybody on this list. So in this circumstance, Sasuke still has his Rinnegan, Naruto still has Kurama. We're to start with Sasuke. He has every chakra nature but Yang and only decides to use lightning. I guess he uses fire sometimes. Madara states that he would have chosen Sasuke over Obito as an apprentice if Sasuke was alive when he had the choice. With one arm, he was able to box with Kenshiki Otsutsuki in a Kenjutsu match. And while Kenshiki was a lower ranking Otsutsuki, that is still insane. And with the help of Naruto, he was able to kill a fused Momoshiki. He has eternal Mangekyo Sharingan from the eyes he stole from Itachi, the eyes that Itachi gave him, considering the fact that Itachi wasn't fighting Sasuke to kill him. Itachi was only fighting him to pull Orochimaru out of him. And his two eyes abilities are Amaterasu, which is a black flame that if it hits you, you burn forever until you die or until the user releases it. And Kagutsuchi, which allows him to control the shape of this black flame, allowing him to apply it to swords, his hand, whatever. But since we were talking about Orochimaru, he also has a curse seal for the majority of the time. And this curse seal allows him to pull in Senjutsu chakra, effectively making him a sage that he can then use to replace his depleted chakra. And in his curse seal's second form, he grows two hand wings that he can use to fly. And anything you cut off him, i.e. the hand wings, he can replace with snakes. Well, let's not forget his most important power-up in the war. Kagura slapped a Rinne Sharingan into his face.
Nick, it's not a Rinne Sharingan. It's a 6-Tomei Rinnegan.
I know. Nobody finds you correcting people saying Rinne Sharingan sexy. Okay? And this 6-Tomei Rinnegan gives him all of the abilities of Nagato, which he could have used to bring Neji back to life, but we won't talk about that. He could also use it to instantly grow a new mechanized arm, but also won't talk about that. He also had unique Rinnegan abilities like Heavenly Hand Power, where he can switch the locations of things with semi-equal masses. He can switch his body with a sword. He can switch an enemy with a friend. It's an ability that Ishiki really didn't like. He can also open space-time portals that allow him to travel between dimensions. And hypothetically, he can use limbo clones, but we don't know for sure. But what we do know is he can use his Rinnegan to see invisible objects like limbo clones, or like Kaguya traveling between dimensions. And if none of that is enough, he also has his Susanoo, which is a perfect Susanoo, so it can fly. Susanoo is actually very versatile. It can wield swords or a bow. His is the only Susanoo we've ever seen with the ability to switch weapons. Those weapons aren't as powerful as people like Itachi's. And is that enough? Can we move on, please? Because the last person on the list, you guessed it, it's Tenten, obviously. Kidding, it's obviously Naruto. Naruto has every single chakra release. Yin, Yang, and Yin and Yang. He Because Naruto has yin yang release, that means he could hypothetically combine basic nature chakra releases in order to create Kekkei Genkai, like how Moegi in the most recent data book is said to be able to create wood release by combining water and earth chakra releases. But Naruto also has a Hashirama cell arm, which should make him able to use wood release. But let's not talk about things he can't do quite yet. Let's talk about things he can do. He can use boil release, lava release, and magnet release, because he had every single tailed beast pulled into him at one point, and all of those tailed beasts either have some chakra left in him or liked him so much that they just granted them their Kekkei Genkai. We know this because in Boruto, Naruto uses a lava release Rasen Shuriken. But since we're talking about the tailed beast, let's talk about the tailed beast that Naruto has, Kurama. Kurama is stronger than all the other tailed beasts combined. And because of that, Naruto is able to use a mode with Kurama that is called Baryon mode, where Naruto and Kurama collide their chakra into each other to make a new form of energy. A form of energy so powerful that Naruto was able to box with a literal god in Ishiki. And since they are destroying chakra in order to make this mode, and all chakra is created, if Naruto hits somebody with this mode activated, it shortens their lifespan. Outside of that, he's a perfect sage, so at any point he can have a shadow clone somewhere collecting nature energy, and he can have that shadow clone explode and simply send him all that senjutsu chakra. This gives him an almost limitless access to chakra, on top of the fact that he's a half Uzumaki and has more chakra than almost anyone else in history outside of Hashirama, who quipped that when Naruto had put a Jin cloak on every single person in the Shinobi Alliance, that was about as much chakra as Hashirama had. Look at this little idiot. Not to mention the fact that because Naruto has yin yang release and you can combine basic chakra natures when you have yin yang release, he could also technically use dust release, which is a Kekkei Toda and is the combination of earth, wind, and fire. We haven't even mentioned the fact that he has Sage of Six Paths chakra, which, by the way, he still has access to, which is like a whole nother reserve of chakra that refills after he uses it. That substantially increases his speed, dexterity, agility, power, all of these things. He's the main character for a reason. And that's it. That's the Konoha 13. I hope you guys enjoyed this little, I guess, power scaling video. If you disagree with my takes, that's fine. It's okay to be wrong, but agree or disagree, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that Noti bell, baby. Listen, I'm not saying that Tenten is the biggest waste of potential in the history of Naruto, but you make a woman who can wield the strongest weapons in her verse, and she just ends up running a failing weapons business.